Hey, it's Albert with Two Tribes Primal Living, and I've been out here working on the greenhouse um, walls. I've got one, two, three, four, five sections of the walls put up, which is 50 feet. I've still got, I would say, I've got 40 feet to go, 30 feet to go, so almost there. Um, when you're out here and you're working and it's so quiet. All you hear is the roar of the river down below, or the snow melt, the creek. You hear that, and you hear the birds, and occasionally you can hear, you know, turkey off in the distance or coyote off in the distance. But for the most part, it's just quiet out here, and a man has a lot of time to think and let his mind wander and reflect upon, not only his past uh, as a child, not only his past as a teenager, or his past as even a young man, and you realize that you're damn near into your 50s, and you're living a life that you always dreamed about. It's not something that um, was ever depicted to you by friends or families or family members or you know coworkers or anything like that. It's just this vision of what life should be like. And as a child, I recall playing in the backyard quite a bit, and being up in the trees. I was always up in the trees, or on the roof, or under the house, or somewhere where I was usually alone, where I felt safe, or I felt comfort in whatever activity I was involved in. I you know didn't have a lot of friends growing up. Um, I guess the neighborhood kids that I ran around with, those if those are considered friends. But most of the time, that was just who was available to play at the time, or who had I not gotten in a fight with um, at that week, or whatever. So I was kind of always alone as a child, playing in the backyard, and used my creativity a lot to play. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. My parents didn't buy us a lot of things, so there wasn't toys or anything accessible. So if I found rope or nails or wood or something like that I could build something out of, or I could tinker with, or I could make a something to entertain myself, digging holes in the dirt, playing with little cars or whatnot. Just and I find myself back to that level of life once again. I find myself out here um, in the mountains, no schedules. The only schedules that we go by are the sunrise and the sunfall, and it's gotten kind of to the point where it's not even a real um, existence in the minds of other people, in conceiving that a person could return back to their childhood and to a childhood state of being. But I guess the conflictual part of that is as you grow older, and you wise up. You've had the traumas, you've had the self inflicted crises in your life that you pretty much self-inflicted yourself, and you learn. There's a lot of lessons involved in growing up, from being a child, and growing up and becoming a man, and finding out what's important in life. And I think what's important in my life is freedom in the freedom of not only action, the act of freedom, but the freedom of thought and the freedom to be able to finally speak your truth and who you are and what you have become. And I think a lot of people have a tendency to associate a person or an adult, especially when when that person or that adult has been in a specific area their whole lives. And I think we not only remember people by who they are, but we associate people with who they once were. And I can honestly say that I'm not the same person that I was a month ago. I'm not the same person that I was a year ago. I'm not the same person that I was 10 years ago. I've grown up and I've made some decisions and I've made some choices and I've made some bad decisions and I've made some bad choices, but I've also made some really, really good decisions. And it's the really, really good decisions that have led up to the existence that I have today. And you know, I wouldn't trade the existence that I have right now for the world. And a lot of people, you know, who know me from as a child or as a um, young man, will still judge me by those mistakes that I made in the past, those poor decisions that I made in the past, and that's okay. You know, that's the energy that I left a person with. And you know, there's a lot of people in my past who left me with their energies. And I like to think about it as, you know, you're the sum of everybody you've ever been in contact with, whether you believe it or not. I believe it, simply because um, once that person's ego is gone from your presence, from your life, um, they leave their energy, they leave their impact that they had on your life with you, whether you believe it or not. Because anytime you think of that person, or anytime you think of a situation, or if you're in a situation, or um, you see that person's face, or you're reminded by that person's energy, it takes you back to that day, the last time you saw them, or the last time you were around them, or that last time you interacted with them. So even though the ego is gone, the energy remains, and that's that residue. That's the residue of a person. And I guess growing up and becoming a wiser person, um, you realize that that was the energy of that person at that point in life, and it's not their absolute energy. People change, as much as we'd like to think that they don't, based on their actions. You know, we don't really know what they're going through, or what their truth is. We get to see the ego, um, when we interact with people. Um, you know, especially acquaintances. When people are your best friends and people are your family members, you kind of get to know them a lot better. But I don't think I've ever really been close enough to anybody, um, as an acquaintance or as a friend or anything like that, for them to really know who I am, what I stand for, what my integrity um, means to me and not to them. Um, and everybody's integrity as to who they mean to themselves, what they mean to themselves, is different. And I think if more people were brave enough to express who they really are to the world and to what they really believe in this world, I think there would be a lot less confusion. I think there would be a lot less judgment. You know, it's crazy to believe how in this day and age somebody who is trying to be helpful can be deemed as hateful. Um, you know, we shoot the messenger for the message that they have, and never really question, well, how did you come to this conclusion? What 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 did you go through in life to come to these conclusions that you're bringing forth in your belief system and your social views and your even your political or religious views. How did you get to this point? Um, we don't ever ask that. We just judge, and we just point fingers, and it's like I said, your best intention can be to be helpful and to help people, but if that 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 energy can easily become hateful in the eyes of somebody who doesn't understand your journey, or somebody who doesn't understand even their own journey. And I do believe that a lot of people are struggling right now with what is truth, and what is reality, and what the future holds, as far as from a individual point of view to community point of view. What kind of community are we going to end up with at the end of this? What kind of individuals are we going to end up with at the end of this? Who are we going to be? What are we going to discover about ourselves through this? And me, I can honestly say the discoveries run very deep within me, because I'm trying to listen. I'm trying to hear the messages of intuition, and the messages of the intelligence that created us, and not listen to the the false narratives, and the corruption, and the conspiracies. I mean, I understand quite a lot about mankind, and I understand quite a lot about history, because I've studied it. I'm not an academic. I'm not a scholar. I don't have a PhD. I don't have thousands of certifications that say that I'm an expert in this. But that doesn't make me less of a person. That doesn't make my knowledge and my wisdom less valuable than somebody who is a PhD or an academic, simply because you know um, they memorized it. And memorization is part of the problem. When we memorize the history that has been handed down to us over the eons, me being of Native American descent, there's a lot of lies that I grew up being taught through the education system. And there's a lot of lies that the Irish and the Scottish and the Africans and the Chinese and all the people who make up this great country of America, they've been lied to. They've been, history only proves that it's written by the winners of the war. And if you don't ever seek a different perspective of history, or you don't ever seek a different perspective of science or philosophy, you know, um, I look at I listen to Alan Watts quite a bit, and Alan Watts is a philosopher back in the '70s, and he talks about the Great Depression. And it's one of the things that as I'm out here building, his lecture runs rampant in my head, because he talked about the Great Depression as if using money as a measurement of wealth. And during the Great Depression there was a lack of money. And what is money? Money is that it's exactly a measurement of wealth, or a measurement of debt these days. um, but and he used it because people were starving, and people were frantically living their lives out as if there was a shortage of resources. And as I'm measuring these boards, he uses the analogy of showing up to the job site, a construction job site, and the foreman shows up. We can't build today. Um, we're all out of inches. There's no inches, and it's kind of like, what do you mean there's no inches? Well, We're completely out of inches. And you, as a logical thinking person, would look at him and go, well, that's insane. We have wood, we have tape measures, we have hammers, we have nails, but what do you mean there's no inches? We can't build. And that's the exact concept of money. It's a measurement. And so when you look at these hard times that are supposedly ahead of us, or that have been put upon us, you have to remember that you as an individual, you as a person, you as a community, you as us as a whole are the resource. There is no reason why there should be a food shortage, or a shortage of abundance. I mean, we have all the resources. We're the ones that do all the work. We're the ones that fulfill everybody's needs daily in some amount. Whether you're a cashier, or you're a construction worker, or a bus driver, or a mechanic, or a banker, or whatever you are. I mean, you fulfill people's needs every day, and just because money is running tight and money is running short doesn't mean that we shouldn't live in abundance. And I think that's, for me, when I heard that, I think it drew me within myself, and caused me to look at myself and question myself. What kind of asset are you to yourself? What can you contribute to a community? If you were part of a community that was dependent on food and abundance, and all the basic necessities of life, which include water, food, shelter, security, and your health. If you were put in a situation where you were in a community, and you were required to contribute, what would be your contribution? And me being a TV repairman for 30 years, damn near 30 years, it's like, this is just my occupation. This isn't who I am as a person. What am I going to be able to contribute to a civilization, a community, a society that needs me? I mean, and I mean needs me, and I need them. Um, so, Nikki and I decided, years back, even when we first met, we talked about the importance of self-reliance, and how we had, as a society, drifted away from that that very valuable asset that our grandparents and great great grandparents and our ancestors that were here before us, that they possessed, and we know nothing about. I mean, there are people out there who are homesteaders, who have been doing it for years. There are people out there who have lived off grid for years, for eons, and they never became part of the society. And for us, that was the one thing that we could do, that we could develop for ourselves as individuals, and possibly contribute to a community. And here we are, we find ourselves doing that very thing. And we didn't realize that there was going to be a crisis. We didn't realize that there was going to be a need for us to become self-reliant, and to become self-sufficient, and a need to contribute. And so when I say that I'm not the same person that I was 2 years ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 48 years ago, it's an evolution. Being a person on this planet, being an individual, an ego, as I call it, because we are all egos, whether it's a inflamed ego or a meek ego. We all possess an ego. It's something that we evolve through in life. Our opinions, our beliefs, our triggers. There's a lot of triggers right now. I can attest to that. There's a lot of triggers on this planet right now. But I just wanted to sit down and talk to the camera for a few minutes, and let people know that if somebody is in a situation where they're trying to help you be helpful, don't consider them harmful. Um, it's just their best way. They know how to communicate to people. I'm not a great communicator. I'm actually too blunt. I'm too honest. I feel that we've been lied to enough, and I don't know how to put sprinkles on a turd. I don't know how to present things to people in a pretty way. So I'm kind of the guy who will piss off a room full of people in a second because um, I don't really have filters when it comes to truth. I understand truth as absolutes, and when you develop critical thinking skills and you develop a pattern of questioning things that just don't make sense and they don't add up, and then you follow up with research and you follow up with your due diligence to mankind into saying, hey, something's not right here. I was just up on the pier and I saw 4 sharks in the water, and all you people need to get out of the water. And they look around and they go, we don't see any sharks. You're an idiot. And I'm like, all right, well, I guess when one of y'all gets eaten, then there'll be sharks. So sometimes the truth literally has to present itself to people before they believe it, and I think that in these times the truth is absolutely presenting itself to us in a lot of ways. It's not like the government and our health system and our banking system and all the systems that we've trusted all these years. I guess because of this pandemic, they just became maybe a little shady, maybe a little corrupt. Um, as this happened, it's not like it's been going on for years since this country was established. Um, so since before this country was established, the English and the Spanish and the French, the Scottish and the Irish and all those people that have been monarchs, ruled societies, have been fighting over land and conquering land. The Romans, the you know the empires that ruled and that have fallen, and it's not like we got here because those empires are still in power. They rose and they fell, and history will teach us everything we need to know about those empires that rose and fell, and it's kind of hard to conceive that we are actually in an empire that has risen and is in the midst of falling, and we're all part of it. We're part of that history that is about to happen. Just like the history of our grandparents and great grandparents who went through the Great Depression, and the history of their great grandparents who went through some kind of rise and fall of a society or um, a civilization that is now part of this modern day society that we live in. There's no real way to conceive that growing up as a child in this country, that one day you're going to be faced with some very hard times, and your children are going to be faced with those hard times, and your grandchildren are going to have to be the ones or your young children. I'd say if you got a child before the age of 8 to 5 years old, they're gonna inherit a brunt of what's going on today. But you know, like I said, I I've cleared my mind. I've cleared my soul. So whatever information is received is information that is not put um, out there through me recklessly. Actually, like I said, I'm trying to help, but some people don't want to be helped. Some people want to feel it, uh, and they want to act like things are going to go back to the way they were before, and it's not necessarily a bad thing what's happening right now. It's actually a good thing because, it's like I told Nikki, um, we're all at fault for what's going on right now. Whether you want to believe it or not, whether I want to believe it or not, we're all at fault. We got too complacent. We got too comfortable with living life in the lap of luxury, living life where it doesn't matter. I want it and I want it now. And now this country is in a hell of a lot of debt. I mean, 2 months ago we were at $23.5 trillion of national debt, and today we're at $25.5 trillion, which I don't even know how people don't understand what $1 trillion looks like, but that is a lot of money, and we've created that debt. The governments that handle our finances and get us into debt, we learned from them. We learned that frivolous spending is, if we want it now, we want it now, and here, put it on the credit card. But something's got to give. Something is going to give. Um, it is mathematically impossible to repay the debt that we're in. Um, so there's going to be a financial reset, and this entire pandemic is revolving around that reset, uh, and it's going to lead to hyperinflation. It's going to lead to deflation at the same time, and I don't think people understand what that means. Hyperinflation and deflation happening at the same time has never happened in history. And the reason that's so significant is because your goods and services, which means your food and fuel cost, or your goods and services, getting a haircut, getting a manicure or massage or whatever people do, services, anything in a service sector is going to go up in price. And that is going to be inflation. So food, from all basic necessities of life, that's going to go up in price. Um, the deflation is going to come into place with your assets or liabilities. Assets and liabilities are your home, your car, your property, your assets. Um, they're going to drop in price, and you know. Commercial property, it's been speculated it's going to drop 95% of its value. Residential property is going to drop 85%. So do the math on that. If you have a $100,000 home, what's it going to be worth when deflation hits? And this is part of the monetary reset that has to occur in order for nations to take control over their finances again, their debt. There is no way that they can pay the amount of money that is owed in the current um, monetary system. So it's going to have to go to a reset. It'll go to a gold standard. Um, Gold would become money again, which it was never not money. We just got led to believe that gold and silver were collectibles when they're actually the money system that we should have been living by, that was taken away from us back in the 70s. So, but you know, it's crazy. I'm trying to live through it. I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to stay ahead of it. I'm trying to make sure that it doesn't have as big of an impact on me as it should. But corporations, the billion-dollar corporations that are getting richer and richer and richer through this crisis, this pandemic, this lockdown, this financial depression that we're about to go through. It's going to be the biggest wealth transfer in the history of America, for sure. The billionaires are going to get richer, and the working class, middle class, upper class, whatever class you want to call yourself, if you're not a billionaire, we're going to feel the brunt of it. And I don't want to fearmonger. I don't want to piss people off. I don't want to do any of that. I want people to be aware of what's really going on that the media is not talking about or telling you about, or a lot of people don't even not understand. It took me literally 4 months of constant research to understand what is going on with our financial system, how it works, why it's working the way it has been, and why it's about to go down. But it's a tsunami coming at us. I don't know if you've ever stood on the beach and you've watched the water kind of go away because the waves are building up, and then here comes the crash. And it appears that we're right now where we're at is that water is being pulled back, and that crash is going to be coming down on us pretty hard. So I guess that's all I got to say about all this. So, whether you believe me or not, whether you think I'm an idiot or I have no credentials or no background in even talking about these things, it doesn't matter whether you believe me. It doesn't matter whether you see or understand what I'm saying is truth. What matters is what's coming is coming, and there's not anything any of us can do about it. Protest or uprisings or rioting or any of that stuff. None of that stuff is going to fix what's coming. It's already in the works, and I guess if you're planning an uprising or planning some kind of social unrest or protest or anything like that, those people who needed to be bought off to make what's happening happen have already been bought off. They've already been paid. They can't go back on it. They're part of the problem. Let it be congressmen or senators or governors or law enforcement agencies. I mean, it's all a chain of command that most people don't even understand. How these elites that control our planet, that control our countries and control our governments, you don't even realize how they work, how evil these people are, how hell bent on power and control. The general public doesn't know anything about it because they operate in secret. And, there's a lot of things going on behind the doors in secret. Whether it's the corporation that you work for, the country you live in, the city you live in. They don't tell us everything. So whether you believe it or not, that's up to you. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm not trying to argue with you. I'm not trying to say that this president or this candidate is better than another president or candidate. I'm very neutral, and being in the middle of the neutrality of things actually gives you insight to what's really going on. So I'm going to leave it there, and this was just my rant from being here, and remember being a kid, and what it feels like to create and to be part of a movement, an awakening that is self-reliance, that is self-sustainability, that is truth, that is integrity, and in no ways is what I have to say or what I think something that should be looked at upon as something as me trying to be right or me trying to be superior or overstepping my boundaries or overstepping my pay scale or knowledge or any of that. It's I kind of give a shit about what happens to people these days. I kind of care about people not suffering and just trying to prepare them mentally, spiritually, how to walk through this. I mean, it's going to be a journey, and it's not going to go away in 6 weeks or 3 months or a year. This is something that we're going to endure for me. I'm 48, so I figure I'm going to endure this the effects of this probably the rest of my life, um, because it didn't get this way overnight. It didn't get like this because we were tending to our freedoms, and because we were tending to our truths. This happened because this is happening because we let other people tell us how to think and what to think, and what's trendy and what's fashionable, and what's popular, and how to cut your yard, and what to grow in your yard, and what kind of car to drive, and you know um, the pandemic part of it is a crisis, and those who are in power have a philosophy: never let a good crisis go to waste, and they are absolutely implementing that philosophy. We're not going to let this crisis go to waste, whether it was man-made, whether it was accidentally released, or whether it was a natural cause, whatever. That doesn't matter. It's not even relevant at this point. Um, Looking towards the future and hanging on to each other is what's important. Um, Becoming an asset, and preparing. Um, I'm going to say more mentally and spiritually, physically. We really have control over it. We have some control over it, but we don't have absolute control over that. So mentally and spiritually are in the top two of my preparations right now. So take care, and we'll talk to you guys later.